Don't everybody go at once. No, I feel like I don't know. How do I introduce myself? I'm just sitting here in a chair with a cup of ice cream coffee, waiting for Godot. Well, I can't because I'm waiting for Godot. Honestly, amazing performance. I saw that once with John Turturro, Richard Crenna, Christopher Lloyd, and Tony Shalhoub.
Oh man, that sounds amazing.
That was a performance. Julie, do the thing.
Do the thing. The wonders of technology. Did you leave your edibles and milk out for Snoop?
Snoop's too busy with his ColecoVision to care.
I'm just like, Snoop has a wine label too. Like, I just love that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, dude's successful.
Dude's successful. Yeah, he's doing what he loves. Like,
okay, so this is like in the last week. This is a bit of a somber note. In the last couple of weeks, we lost like DMX, passed on. But a couple of days ago, I'm sitting on the route, and I see they put up an article that Black Rob. Oops, I can hear you. Oh no.
All right. Hopefully I'm heard now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you fine.
Cool, but can the people out in Streamland hear me? Waiting on confirmation.
The world may never know.
Well, I see the levels going up, so I'm just going to assume that I can be heard now.
Yay.
Anyway, yes, perfect.
We're both using headphone-like stuff.
Yeah, and hopefully everybody else can be heard now too, because I had to redo. Like it's a Mac, so it's kind of like not a very good. It's not like the best with like sound splitting and stuff like that. So Anyway, so I am AJ, and once again, welcome to a very special 420 episode of Moroder. We're not having a traditional session this week. We are having more of like a It's a segment that I like to call, and how are you? So we're going to be checking in with two of our players. Like I said before, when the sound was off, we're going to be talking to Lex, who plays Siri, and Kit, who plays Stuart. So the newly christened Cyrilla Cheswick, I almost said your other name. Cyrilla Cheswick, why don't you tell us about yourself and your character?
Yeah, it's only Cyrilla Madigan in Eberron.
Exactly. I don't know why I did that. There is a Madigan in here, but he's not your dad. Cheswick is your dad.
I count them, 3 versions of her. They're all artificers, and they're spread across this, Eberron, and classic AL. And Siri is Siri. Let's have some fun. Let's blow stuff up. I mean, although I find it interesting that the more I play her, the less she wants to blow stuff up. Now she just wants to get that stupid Holiday Road tape out of the tape deck.
That will be dealt with.
She's going to point her cannon at it and just keep firing until she gets enough crits to destroy the tape deck. And then she will rewire it to play Life is a Highway.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys do have another tape, but you don't know what's on it yet because.
Well, I know what's on it.
Well, you do because I played it for you when we were driving to McDonald's, but like no one else does. So let's keep that between us. I get very excited because to test out my ideas because Lex doesn't care if they're spoiled or not, obviously, because I already know how The Sopranos ends, which we're
I didn't see Christopher coming, but I saw everything else.
Spoilers for a 20-year-old show.
And by the way, Sephiroth kills Aerith, and
Soylent Green is people,
and Snape kills Dumbledore.
Yeah. I mean, spoilers.
Yeah, what's your favorite spoiler to tell people of? Well, mine is it was his sled from Citizen Kane.
Oh, for me, it is what it always will be. Soylent Green is people.
Soylent Green is people.
Says spoilers. I say Soylent Green is people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny because I've gotten to that point in my life where when I say that, when I first heard that, it was common knowledge that Soylent Green is people, even as far into the 80s. And I think I watched that movie in 1990. And Soylent Green is people was like a spoiler, like that's like I guess an early meme of what a spoiler is. Now I'm like, well, Soylent Green is people, and I get like, what's Soylent Green? And I'm like, I'm not that old. I'm only 39.
Oh yeah.
It was one of the first like meme Meme spoilers, yeah.
I guess Snape kills Dumbledore is probably the big one now.
Snape kills Dumbledore is like the first meme, I think. Spoiler that like you know. Anyway, so and we also have Kit playing Stuart Smalls, our halfling rogue bard. Why don't you tell us about yourself and where Stuart is at right now in this story that I have written? And
hilariously, as a charisma based character, I don't have that much charisma. So it's kind of hard for me always to kind of carry the talking, which is funny because I often play charisma based characters. Like I have paladins that I play in D&D, and yet here I am playing a bard rogue. I have been liking the recent A-Team references though.
Yes.
I was a big fan of that. I was a big fan of both the rerun syndications and the movie that was out, I guess, in the past 10 years.
It's Shara is, I think, with us right now.
Ooh.
Possibly. Anyway, yeah, Shara could not join us tonight, but we wish her well, hope she's feeling better. And also, Bear was not able to join us tonight because COVID shots are a thing. And yeah, it's just, we also hope that Bear feels better as well. Bear plays Lee, one of the new members of the team, and Shara plays Murph, our paladin, our lovely, lovely paladin. Anyway, sorry, continue, Kit.
No, that actually brings me to a point. I've actually liked how the characters have changed over time. Because Stuart was very much as I imagined him to be, was kind of I know a guy who knows a guy. You know, kind of this person who had he had a stable job and then left because of, he got cynical basically. And now Murph is I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah.
And Stuart's just kind of
criminal background.
Yeah, and some of it is because the criminal background and actually doing the role playing, and some of it is because Stuart's background is more military, so it kind of comes up in certain situations.
Yeah, I remember you did have pretty good rapport with Minister Hardcastle.
Yeah,
that one time you met him, the battlesmith that you met.
Yeah.
That you didn't know he was a minister, and now you do. And
yep, that was fun.
Sexton Hardcastle.
No, not Sexton Hardcastle, but
should be.
Yeah. Did you just say should be?
Should be.
Is there a way in Zoom to up someone's volume, I wonder, because I can barely hear Lex.
Oh my god.
If there is, I don't know. But
sorry, my brain is all over the place. I heard Lex doing the oh my god intonation.
No, I was looking at something and it turns out that what is it? Jeff Rosenstock just dropped a ska version of his last album and I'm like, what?
No, it's just the way that you said it reminded me of the beginning of and this sounds really horrible.
God, Becky.
It sounded exactly like that. Oh my god, Becky.
Look at her butt.
Her butts. It is so big. The song was just already playing halfway through.
So yeah, you guys have been spending most of your time in a city, and now you guys are out in a wasteland. How's that been for you guys after escaping?
Finding me a bunch of chase rules that never come up in tabletop games.
Wait, say that again.
So some, I'm not sure if D&D has this. I'm sure it must. Or I think it did in season 9 of AL with Avernus. But it reminded me a lot of Mad Max, and I know I use that example a lot, but
oh no, it's fine.
It's fine. And also because not a lot of fantasy type games give a thought to traveling. They might, some GMs play it more realistic and have people take shifts and do watches, overnight kind of deal. Some people just cinematically do, okay, you take a long rest, you know, it's dealt with. Um, but sort of this idea of like you have a vehicle or you have a ship or you have an airship or here's vehicle chase rules, like you don't tend to see them very often unless it's something like Shadowrun or I don't know, something more modern.
Uh-huh.
D20 used to have rules for it, but like I don't tend to see chase rules or vehicle rules very much.
Yeah, it's not a common thing, but like when it
Even
happens,
for mounts, it's not really a common thing, yeah.
Well, like, so So I should also explain that part of the reason that this stream exists was because it was sort of an experiment for people who haven't, like, ever seen the stream before, if they're just tuning in. So I was approached to say, like, hey, you're a new-ish DM. We want to, do a show where, like, you create a world and people play in it. And Rich came up to me with this idea, and I'm just like, me, like looking around like, wait, you're speaking to me. And he's like, yeah, just think of something, and then we'll do it. And I was like, okay. And I kind of, this is going to sound bad, I kind of don't like playing in a fantasy setting really that much, and I don't really know that much about fantasy worlds in as a whole. So I was just like, how can I make my own world being like like the stereotypical fantasy, like, medieval sort of time frame, and not make it be just like, oh, we're playing D&D just regular in that setting. So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna throw a curveball. I'm gonna make things really difficult for myself and do a low magic modern world. And it was a little bumpy at first, but I think I did pretty good. At least I hope I did. No one's said otherwise.
No, I was going to say that that's actually sort of a compliment is what I was getting to because mainline D&D is probably the system that people know the best. If they know any tabletop at all, they've heard of D&D.
Yeah.
mhm.
And so it's kind of this weird common language. Again, because if anybody's heard of tabletop, they've heard of D&D. Whether it's because they played another edition of it or they heard about it or they've heard about it because of like Satanic Panic, in the 80s
Yes.
Hail
because
Satan.
of because of Stranger Things, right? Like
Yeah.
you've seen it played, yeah. You've seen it
Stranger Things.
referenced.
Yeah. I believe like the interest started coming up again after the Community episode came out.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Um,
that one, yeah.
yeah, and I don't remember what year that was. I think possibly like 2007. I can't remember, 2007 maybe. Um, and then like there were references, I guess, and then it just like exploded when Stranger Things like came out, and also Critical Role started
Yeah,
being.
Critical Role and the live plays around that. Like Adventure Zone was a big one too.
I've
Um,
never actually seen Critical Role like in its entirety. I've seen like clips of
I
it.
I have. But
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get into it, ironically. I got into it what was considered very late when the first campaign was ending, which right now I kind of have this odd timing regret. Because there was a year where like between convention appearances, I kept running into Matt Mercer.
Hmm.
Oh,
Um,
does your foot hurt from that name that you just dropped?
I
I'm just ragging on you. Yeah,
mean,
I think I met Matt as well at cons back when they were a thing.
and it was yeah, and it was back when they were a thing, and it really wasn't. It doesn't sound as impressive as it is. It was mostly just like I had panels to get to, or someplace to be, or staff, or a staff shift, and it was literally seeing him in the hallway kind of deal, right? Like I knew he was there.
Yeah,
Um,
like Matt, Taliesin, Travis, like all good guys. Uh, I met Taliesin at AAC.
mm,
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, yeah, AAC 2016, And yeah, he was awesome. We talked horror movies. I disagreed with his opinion on Rob Zombie Halloween.
Taliesin just seems just seems like a fun guy, to be
And
honest.
don't forget that time in 2012 when Taliesin called you out on Twitter.
Yeah, it wasn't really a call out. Okay, so the story goes that I had just come back from work. It was late at night. I think I was like eating chicken at like 11:30 at night, like, and I get an alert on my phone that says like at my old Twitter handle is a total cumber bitch because at the time I was very much into Sherlock, and
Oh,
I
bitches weren't bad.
self-identified as a cumber bitch, and I'm just like,
Bitches was the term.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm
like
like,
that
who
was it.
is this person? I've never seen the name before. I'm like, who is this person? They're not wrong, but I just don't know who this is. And then like Lex calls me up and they're like, oh, did you see? And I'm like, did you get a thing on Twitter? I'm like, yeah, how do you know about that? I was like, oh, I'm with Talis and Jaffe right now, and we're like drunk. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
told him
Yeah,
about
that
you.
does
we
sound.
were imbibing in the green room at, oh God, Anime Punch Armageddon, and
I was gonna say
we were
that.
talking about Sherlock, and I mentioned it, and he pulls out his phone and he types in that at underscore whatever is a total effing cumberbitch, no shit, hashtag Sherlock, and
Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly. And I'm just like,
and no, I'm that was one of the first times I ever had Everclear, so that was an interesting night. And
Gonna
yeah,
say
that
like, how
we
many
hung
con
out.
stories do you have, and how many of them start out with "and I was drunk"?
Not a lot of them actually, because I, stopped doing that. But I have a lot of con stories. That's just one of the ones I like to share
we're gonna get
because, like, it's
flagged.
funny. It's
These go
fun.
up on YouTube now, just so you guys know. Apparently, like one of the so I just found out that these go up on YouTube now, and after I had like an embarrassing kind of gaffe, I did an art stream on one of the off weeks, and I talked a lot, and I thought it was going well. I thought I was like very, I was actually like loose, and like I thought I was like telling good stories and stuff like that, and then it turns out that my mic was off the entire time.
Oh
And I'm just
no!
like, okay, just don't worry. In 2 weeks, it's gonna get deleted, and no one will ever know it existed.
Oh no!
After that, and that's when I found out that LI Tabletop is uploading all this stuff on YouTube, and I'm just like,
Oh
and that was one of
no!
the ones that was up there, and
And
I'm just like,
that's how you get fired.
all right.
No, I'm actually it's weird because I don't tend to do a lot of streaming. I would work better with voice than I do video. I used to stream, but that was like 10 years ago.
Right.
I used to do Second Life streaming.
Oh, okay.
And back then, obviously the setup's changed since.
Yes.
Back then you could literally do Winamp and Shoutcast. Remember Winamp?
Winamp.
Oh, Winamp.
Winamp,
Oh,
It
yeah.
really whips the llama's ass. I am 37.
Yep. And you could get the Shoutcast plugin, and that's all you needed to do.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was very simple to set up. And I lucked out in Second Life. It's actually how I met my housemate. There's a long story behind that.
I am just having a time with this cowlick.
But in Second Life, the area that I was in was a very much like a steampunk type area that at the time was one of the starting areas. And
Interesting.
I just kind of stayed there. And if you did DJ work, if you put on like set lists and did like regular shows, the way that Second Life worked was via microtransactions. I got paid enough in tips to basically deal with the microtransactions that I wanted. So I didn't have to put like any real money in if I didn't want to. And to be honest, the shows were kind of fun. I did them twice a week, and I would do 2 hour sets, maybe 3 hour. And that was fun. It was just a little bit of a problem once video and wireless capacities plus streaming, and you have to have the internet connection that would keep up with it, and video is just a little bit more difficult to do than audio only, I think.
All I know of Second Life is what was referenced on The Office, and also that Monster Factory like arc of like the boy mayor of Second Life.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
That's
fun.
it's
something that's like an amazing thing where one of I don't know which McElroy is which. One of the McElroys, Alpha McElroy. He creates a character. Basically, the premise of Monster Factory is they go into character creator and they try to make the most like deformed
oh
and
yeah,
grotesque character that they can within the bounds of the game.
yeah.
So Oblivion is also another great Monster Factory episode to check out. But
I was gonna say I've seen the Oblivion one. Yeah.
yeah, that one, their Fallout episode with the final Pam, that one's really good. And the Boy Mayor of Second Life is also one of my favorites. And so they create the Boy Mayor. He kind of looks like Baron Trump, but just like, like grotesque.
Oh
And
no.
he's walking around and like trying to get into like all these like social rooms and stuff. And there's this one called Meeting of the Minds.
Oh
And
no.
Beta McElroy, he's like, oh, I can get in. I have enough. What's the currency again?
Linden's?
Lindens. Yeah, I have enough lindens to get in. I'm gonna toss you like one linden, the right amount of lindens minus one, so you have to scrounge for it. So other McElroy gets in, and the first thing he does, he goes up to people, he's like, "What up? I think dogs should vote." And he promptly gets kicked out after like the other McElroy like fools with the controls and just makes a giant pizza box that takes over the entire social room.
Yeah, yeah. I lucked out in that the region I was in, again, it was very sort of steampunky. But if you create objects in there, depending on how it's done, it can easily crash the servers
Yeah.
in the entire like region. We actually had somebody doing what's called prim jewelry, and that's not usually how jewelry is made in Second Life. They usually just use like textures and there's just like put the texture on top of it. This person was doing it model by model by model. I learned how he did it. Unfortunately, the person behind the keyboard passed on.
Oh.
Yeah. But it was very, very labor intensive, both in terms of modeling it and in terms of if the characters are wearing that jewelry and they accidentally like did not click, like it was okay if the avatar is wearing it, but the minute you hit like not wear, if it was out in the if it was out in the region would crash.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
this was actually a known problem. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
like don't do this.
so yeah, we've been so just to get back to Moroder for a little tiny bit.
In terms of
Um,
creating our own worlds.
what's that?
From Second Life to creating our own worlds.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
thematic connection there.
It was kind of like a weird process because I pitched this to people as like what do I do? So the first thing I did was like I pitched it as like oh it's Blade Runner 5e, and that was like completely off from what it ended up being. It's more like I don't even know what to even call it, but I knew that so you guys are in a new setting right now. It's gonna and we have a new layout on the stream. It is the now instead of a urban fantasy campaign, it is now a fantasy western campaign, which I knew was going to happen from the moment that I conceived this campaign. Um, I had the I had the combat that you guys did in the last session in my head since I want to say November of 2019. Like I knew that was going to be a thing already. Some of the smaller details I didn't know. And Kit, I actually have to give you some praise in this because a throwaway joke that you made basically created a major plot point in this. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know this. Please tell.
Okay,
Now I'm curious.
so do you remember the trivia episode that we did last year? So remember, I think in that episode we were doing. You guys had to go get fake IDs from Chuck.
Oh, and I made the joke of like Stuart was searching for like a last name because he didn't want to like use Stuart Smalls because also halfling.
Yeah.
Oh, is that when like I was making the joke of like being related to that one elven officer
Yeah, to James.
to James? Yeah,
Yeah, where it's like your name, like you chose the name David Thorne.
yeah.
And I kind of wanted something because I knew that James was going to be looking at I knew that the next session James was going to find you and like look at your IDs and be like, what the hell? And I kind of wanted something that would just annoy him. So when I had him look at Stewart's ID, I had him open it up and he's like, oh, David Thorne. Oh, that's my dad's name. Really nice. Awesome. Thank you for that. And then I was just like, well, I haven't mentioned his dad at all. You know his mom. She was the person who ran the boarding house that you guys lived in.
Yeah.
And like I'm like, I haven't mentioned his dad. I can like do something with this, and I can like
Became harsher in hindsight, actually. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit. I
A
hope
little
because
bit.
I wanted there was like an actual little nugget that like if somebody asked like why don't you want to talk about your dad, James would have been like, oh, I'm not having that conversation with you right now. You guys are in trouble because, you know. There was another thing that also another reason that Cheswick is a main character or was is a main character is because of an assumption that you guys made, in that the person who threatened the person who was like going around the town asking about you guys and asking about Niall wasn't actually supposed to be Cheswick. You guys
Oh.
assumed that, and I was like, oh, I guess it could be. I don't know. I hadn't made up the character yet.
The descriptions were similar. I think that's why we went with that assumption.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was going to be somebody else. I didn't have like an idea about who yet, but the fact that you said it was Cheswick, that just made it seem more interesting. So I did like pick up a lot of like major plot points from assumptions or jokes that were made. And speaking of Cheswick, Lex also requested for Ciri's father to be Cheswick.
I lobbied for that
You lobbied
hard.
for that
I
hard.
wanted Cyrilla Cheswick to be a thing.
Which was funny though, because I was like, it would be funny to have it would be good to have it be somebody that like you know, not just like some rando.
Yeah, yeah.
Because originally I was gonna have it be some rando, and like when you guys were all saying goodbye to your families, Ciri was gonna meet her family for the first time, and like it was gonna be what it was. And then I was like, well, what if it's somebody that you guys know already? And the only two people that I could think of were Madigan and Cheswick. And Madigan, I thought was a little would have been a little too. I don't know. It didn't seem right because he seemed pretty like all the interactions that he had with you guys. He seemed like a bit annoyed by you. Like there was no warmth coming from him. You were just like you know a burden, and he was like better than you. And I was like maybe Cheswick, but I didn't know how I could make that work for Ciri, because at the time when I was thinking it, Cheswick seemed to be having a more seemed to be having a little bit more of a bond with Murph.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm wondering like how I can make that work. And then Lex brought it up, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, me too. But I also don't know like how I can do that because I feel like the moment has passed for it. And then I thought about it more and I reworked it again. And now Ciri has a dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very much of the opinion of DMs, and this is kind of where I fall when I DM. That DMs are not in entire charge of the story.
Yeah.
So so I take the collaborative storytelling route. But that means that I will pick up on what people do and say in game. Because and this is mostly because as a player, I've played too many tables in the past where it's very clear that what the DM wanted to do is write a novel. And so if you didn't, not that it's not an issue of preparation. It was if you didn't go in very specific or do very specific things, you got railroaded back. Um,
Hmm.
I've been the DM where like, oh, you chose a route that I didn't plan for, right? Like everybody kind of has those when they DM,
Hmm.
but it was very clear. Um, and this was early on, so this was like second and third edition, and I just had DMs that would have been better off, honestly, writing a fantasy story on their own.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
doing it that way,
that
yeah.
was the trouble that I had at the beginning because I have never written for like collaborative play before. And the other thing was that these characters, like the characters of James, Niall, Kaylin, Ulrich, they are old characters of Lex's from back in like the mid 2000s.
Oh yeah,
So
they've been around for a while.
yeah, for me, I felt like in my heart and in my mind, like I knew these characters. So it was really difficult to get, it was really like tough trying to get away from like what they would do
Yeah.
from their story. Because it was just like I want you like and I was just and it was just like I wanted you guys to have your story because at times it felt like I was just like
You knew a
overtaking.
version of those
Yeah.
characters and you didn't want to be too much,
Hmm.
you didn't want to be too strict with it.
And
Yeah. That's
yeah,
what it sounds
it's a
like.
lot. It was a lot of just like trying to separate them from like I guess like just like giving up control, I suppose. Which I at the beginning I had some trouble doing, and also just because like I was new and I'd never written like a campaign before, I'd never written combat before, and that was terrifying for me as
Oh,
well.
combat is always terrifying.
I
Like I
was
still
like,
am afraid of it.
well, I thought well the first combat that I ever did that I ever wrote like in my life was the TV studio dungeon, and um, I'm really happy with how that turned out actually.
Yeah. That was the one I missed, I think. I
You
missed a large
missed
part
the
of that.
first part, I think.
I missed like I either missed the first part or the second part. Like I missed one of the parts, but I was there for the other one.
Yeah, I think you missed the first part. The second part was where you guys are in the actual studio itself, like the sound
I
stage.
was there
And
for that. No, I was there for that one.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the last part. That's where you fight the static elementals that come from the
Yeah.
TV.
I really liked how that turned out though.
Yeah, I was like super happy with that. I was like so thrilled with just like oh yes, my first ever combat, and like people are enjoying themselves, and I really liked, and I was like yes, awesome. And but
Combat
part
is
of the
hard.
reason that I was just like scared because again I'd never done it before, and I didn't know how to like balance it that well because I and because I was like so originally there was only going to be one static elemental,
Hmm.
and there was one static elemental, but then you guys took it down pretty easily, and that's when I made the decision to just be like to have another one uh, like emanate from the screens as static and just like round two.
Hmm.
And I also threw it, and that was going to be the only enemy, but then I realized like oh there's like 8 of you because that was when we still had Charleston. um, and I believe no, there were 7 of you. I believe Niall and James and Cheswick were in that fight as well.
They were, yeah.
Milo
At least
was
I know
at
Milo was.
Milo was at home. I think James
Not Milo. It
specifically.
was
Milo was
Niall
there.
was.
Milo was definitely there.
Oh, I thought James was just like, do not. No, Milo is
No,
not.
Milo was there.
Milo was there, I thought, yeah.
Milo's been like sometimes has been our de facto healer when Siri is unable to heal,
Hmm.
or he's been pretty much picking up the slack when Siri does Siri things.
Hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting thing that happened last time in my other combat in the other combat that we did where I basically pulled it out of thin air that like yeah the Vanza mount cure wounds would work on it or like healing word or whatever.
I had fun with that.
I mean, I had fun with it, and also like I've DM'd and played multiple systems,
Hmm.
and combat still scares me.
Hmm.
Like Doesn't matter if I know the system or not. It doesn't matter if otherwise I'm familiar with it. Like, combat is just hard to plan for and run pretty much no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
fact that you made it interesting and we're willing to go with, we were like, hey, does this count as a mount for purposes of healing? You're like, sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, those same rules apply. The entire time you're going to have that van, because I think you're going to be with that van a lot. So you better get that tape out of there if you want to have any semblance. I'm going to make it so that like you have to roll for like insanity or something like that based on how long the tape is in there.
Roll for stress.
So yeah, roll for stress.
That's why Siri's gonna blow it up.
It'll get you can resolve it in our next session.
Percussive maintenance.
Yeah, the tape deck actually does have a very high DC, so good luck. But yeah, combat to me was terrifying. The first time, actually, the first moment that I felt so at the beginning of this campaign, I felt like a lot of fear, and like before every single session, I would be like panicking because I just be like, I don't know what I'm doing, like how could Rich put this evil on me? Like I have no idea. And then eventually like it would be fine. The one that gave me the most fear was the trivia. It was the trivia one.
Really?
Yeah, because okay, so it was in such a way that you guys were not guaranteed to win,
Oh, okay.
but I wanted you to win. So it was pure luck that it came out that you guys actually won. Um, and that's why I also wanted you guys to have Milo there, because he was going to cast guidance at some points. And also just like the entire mechanic for I did my first ever Roll20 macro where I had to do the intelligence, the collective intelligence for all the tables and everything like that. And like I averaged everything, and I was just like, oh, I really hope this works. I really want them to win because I really want them to have like, you know, this currency, because again, another thing that happened was I wrote myself into like kind of like because of a modern setting, I wrote myself into weird corners where it's like, yeah, secret, no, like secret magic society in the underground. So you guys can't just be like openly going out and just like, you know, casting spells in the streets and like openly murdering people like in 5e, like a regular, like, you know, D&D
5e with the
5e.
witchery. You can't just randomly murder people.
Yeah, that and that's why I made Gwendolyn's band the animatronics instead of like
And that's a
actual
whole thing
humans.
that's actually been a conversation in tabletop, especially with D&D. Because for year slash version slash old grognards kind of deal. Yeah, like people would be like, I'm going to try and, you know, if the city guard asks, you know, questions me about my business, I'm going to, you know, have the rogue backstab him. And it's like, congratulations, now you can't enter the city. Like, don't do these things without repercussions. That's incidentally, sometimes some of that behavior is also why, part of why I think you cannot play chaotic evil in AL, I believe.
Uh,
Really, because
Lex, is that a thing?
You can't play any evil alignment in AL.
it used to be only chaotic evil
No, it used to
in
be
the
you could
drafts.
only play lawful evil if you had documentation or belonged to the right
Yeah,
faction.
I was going to say, like,
They
if you
got rid of that
play lawful
entirely.
evil in certain circumstances, yeah, because part of it was players. There would be a certain kind of player that would excuse very antisocial behavior by saying that was what my character would do.
Oh yeah.
My character would totally backstab the other characters in their sleep. Well, congratulations, then you can't go on adventures with other players. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of played into all of that. But it could be me, but I remember there were some games that used tabletop rules. Neverwinter Nights was one of them. Planescape does an interesting variation. I don't know if Baldur's Gate did this, but some games, if you try to attack the city guards, congratulations, now all the guards are at you. You know,
Yeah.
like you're gonna find yourself surrounded by those city guards, and you're gonna be at the last save point. If you saved, good luck.
Yeah.
Do not murder hobo your way through this.
I was like super scared at the beginning that you guys would just be like, let's just kill, random character. And I was, and oh, again, choices that you made. You guys didn't kill the Rat King. He was your first, I think he was your first combat ever.
Stuart felt very badly about killing one of the rats before they met the rat.
Yeah.
King.
Oh wait, the first monster ever creature was like the swarm of rats. And
yeah, it was a swarm of rats. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and you guys.
Stuart felt really bad about that.
It's okay. He didn't. He never found out. It's fine. Yeah, you guys made the decision to not kill the Rat King, which worked out well for you because you found an ally and you found out that one of the chancellors, and also again, you found out that one of the ministers is his brother. So that's a thing.
And now Stuart talks to rats, specifically because of that first dungeon.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. I like Stuart as a character. I've told you many times that I enjoy how you play Stuart as like a druid. Kind of.
I took mechanically the way that he's split. And I could have just kind of done this via background. I could have just said he had the criminal background and left it at that.
Yeah, what is your background? I think it's
I
can't remember.
Basically city guard, I think, translated into
city
it was like the military background. Yeah.
Let's see.
Maybe it was charlatan, I don't know.
I think it might be charlatan actually.
Might be charlatan.
My files are all over the place.
It might be mechanically charlatan. I remember asking you about the military background because that was part of the backstory.
Let us see.
But charlatan was like
Oh, I don't have a background written down on here on the sheet itself.
Yeah. Remember we were hashing it out. Like I remember talking to you specifically about it.
I think it might have been charlatan.
It might have been, but like I could have just left it at that, right? I could have just been like, I didn't need to take the mechanical rogue levels, but at the same time, I was kind of playing him as kind of face from the A-team.
Yeah,
where like he talks his way in and out of trouble, so that made sense.
Which is great because you have a van now.
Yeah, and now we have a van.
Yeah.
But playing him sort of like a druid, especially with the rats and the small animals, that's actually something I was borrowing from Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, okay. That is a system that I do not know really that well.
So there's a clan in that game called the Nosferatu.
That is what's his face is
That was Daedalus in
Daedalus, yes. Embrace. Thank you. We still haven't finished that show because I was just like I can't with C. Thomas Howell stuff. I just want to see the vampires.
90210.
It's
oh my god.
Said,
you mean the Kindred show? Oh
Kindred,
my
yeah.
god.
What
we were
if
watching.
Aaron's
I think we watched the first
like 4
episodes. I think.
Wow.
We watched almost the entire thing. We just didn't finale.
I've never watched it, and I'm not sure if I want to. It's one of those like if
probably don't.
If I do, I would have the urge to just like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
What do you think that we did?
yeah, I've owned it twice, and like it's really like I don't hate Kindred the Embraced. Like I don't hate it. It's still better than some other crap that you can find, but still, it's what if Aaron Spelling did vampires, and the fact that it's officially licensed. And when you're watching this, well, this is what we're gonna do to the gangrel, you bastards. And I'm like, oh my god.
And keep in mind that I've read the officially licensed tie-in fiction.
Yeah, so have I. Some of it's really good.
Some of it's really good. So
the time of judgment, like Fall of Atlanta, was flipping amazing.
So like I'm used to the quality of licensed stuff being questionable, so I'm just kind of like But anyway, so the clan Nosferatu is known across the different editions of the game as kind of being information gatherers. And because of their clan flaw historically being appearance, such like the Nosferatu in the film, um, they tend to be hanging out in the underground stores and stuff like that. But one of the points that a lot of people make with them is that like they'll use creatures as spies. And my thing was before John Wick came out of using pigeons as spies.
Ah.
Um, Only less so than how in John Wick 2 how it's done with
Mm-hmm.
like the scarves and the transmitters and stuff. Um, I was literally thinking of what if somebody could talk to pigeons and had the idea of, oh wait, I have this opportunity for Stuart to talk to small animals. Yeah, I'm gonna take it
Mm-hmm.
and get information that way, or get like strategy or tactics, or even just like, hey, what do you know about this person? You know?
Yeah, and I believe that worked well for Cheswick, and I believe also you did something with one of the cats. I can't remember.
I
A
was
couple of
talking
things
to
with
one of
cats.
the cats. I was talking to
Yeah.
one of the cats about Cheswick too.
Yeah, that was. I remember that, and I remember. I think
Um,
also when you guys found
Squirrel,
Niles' cat, not Niles' cat, as well.
Niles' cat. It was
Just still a thing.
so far Stuart has talked to like rats, squirrels, and cats.
Hmm.
Um, and mostly to talk about other people
Hmm.
at them. Like, what do you think about this guy? I'm not sure about them.
Hmm.
Um, but it's been really fun to have to kind of play against type because people are like, oh, druids, casters do that. Here's a rogue bard.
Speaking of speaking with animals, I don't know if you guys can hear the little tiny sad mew behind me. Like one of the cats wants to get in.
How dare you have the door shut? How
Well, I
dare.
already have another cat in here, and I can't have two.
Wait, let me open the door and see. I think that might be Neptune.
It's
Let me
Neptune,
open
yeah.
then let me open the door and see if Neppy comes in here. Here we go. No, it's Mordecai
Oh,
and Neptune.
Mordecai!
Mordecai has chosen to come in. Mordecai, Neptune hesitated for too long.
Oh,
Mordecai is now in the
Oh,
room
it's
with
both of
me.
them? Okay.
Hey,
Yeah, for
Mordecai, how
people who
you
are still
doing,
watching,
Mordecai?
not many, I guess, but there's like, a bunch of cats here, and, they
cats.
just kind of do whatever.
Okay, fine. I'll let Neptune in also. If they fight, they fight.
Have fun.
Door is open and Neptune wants no part of it. Okay.
I loved how for a while it sounded like race commentary. Like, too many too soon. She's lost the chance to advance.
Nah. Neptune like hesitated at the door, but the moment Mordecai came in, Neptune was like, "Nope, nope, I want no part of this." But that's your brother.
So, how did you, so you've been playing this for a while. How do you guys feel playing like modern 5e, I guess? It's probably not like the most novel concept, but I just want to get like you guys' opinions on it.
I was fine with modern D20. This is
I
totally
mean, yeah,
fine.
like
Yeah.
20 modern.
I mean, it's like the role play options that we use for our AL characters include things like guitars and punk bands. Why not have it for this too? We're just giving an official setting to stuff that we do in role play anyway.
Hmm.
I mean, I have a bard in AL that literally has bagpipes on her sheet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It never really happens.
Oh,
She ends
Mordecai.
up doing covers of other stuff, but like it's literally on her sheet that bagpipes are an option.
Yeah, that would be kind of anachronistic to like a medieval-ish setting, I
And
suppose.
also, I like it's kind of challenging for me, and this is partly why I play Stuart kind of as, yeah, like basically as a druid, is because in a modern setting, what would a rogue look like?
Hmm.
In fantasy D&D, you have your thieves guild or something like that. You have your assassins.
Hmm.
There's ways to translate that into a modern game, but it didn't fit the setting either. Like it could have been either way more political
Yeah.
or like
I wanted to stay. So, when this was first getting off the ground, I was having the first few streams was me speaking with Rich about how to do a modern setting,
mm,
and he kept referring. I kept saying like he's like, oh, like Shadowrun, and I'm like, I guess I don't know. I've never played Shadowrun, and then I think sorry, Rich, if you watch this, but I remember like saying to Rich, I'm like, Rich, every time you say you call it Shadowrun, I am legit like upset. I don't want to say triggered, but I was just like,
Upset. You're upset.
yeah.
Aw, Mordecai.
I just felt like no, that's not what this is, because he was explaining
You
to me
swear to God it's not
how like I
Shadowrun.
think Shadowrun has like corporations and things like that like run
Yeah.
the thing that
Shadowrun
run
is
the
much more
setting.
cyberpunk. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I kind of wanted this more to be like at first, and then just because of how it was played, it just like didn't become it didn't it like and I was fine with it not becoming like like a cyberpunk sort of setting. So like the Blade Runner thing, the Blade Runner 5e thing, like just like went completely out the window, and I was like actually more grateful for that, because it was like I didn't like a lot of stuff that like I was anticipating doing in like the more sci-fi setting now just seems like, as a new DM, I was just like, this is hard. And that's why it kind of went from like now it's like more like a retro futuristic like
yeah, it's
VCR
like a
tech.
mix of like early aughts and like late 80s in a very interesting way.
Yeah, it's like I wanted like I liked that aesthetic where it's just like and I said like the latest technology that you guys have is like
Nokia flip
cassette
phone.
tapes and like
Yeah.
VHS, and but you guys have like primitive cell phones. Well, not like primitive, like everybody uses, what is it, the Motorola flip out. Like everybody
Yeah.
uses like the Motorola flip out, which is like a clunky little phone. And
But I still liked that. Like I still liked how it was a mix of, on one hand we have mobile phones and texting, but on the other hand we don't have smartphones. You
yeah,
can't just, yeah.
it is like a smartphone kind of. I think I
Kind of.
said that it has like browser capabilities. You can look stuff
But
up
it's,
on it, but it's
yeah.
not like it's like it's a crappy phone from like 2009.
So I was gonna say, like, I remember I had a well, I didn't have an iPhone in 2009, but like the what was out, the
iPod Touch.
iPod Touch, same form factor, had the internet capability, but it was so slow at the time, and it was relatively rare. I mean, people were having it, but it was like by the time a page loaded, like it wasn't really worth the time, really, to wait, in a sense.
Yeah, I think 2009 I had an iPod Touch as well, and I remember it was like at the time I was like, "Ooh, cool." And like I used that thing up until like 2017, I want to say.
Like it was useful in very, like it was useful, but it was limited usefulness.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
like, if you
And
were on
like
campus, it was useful. If you're on, yeah, like
if you had like good enough Wi-Fi, then
yeah,
it's like great for what it is. I mostly
yeah,
just use it to like listen to music and stuff like that. And
exactly. A lot of people just used it for music, or like, oh, if I need to buy music, I have enough internet capability to load the store and buy something. But it's not like, oh, I'm going to be streaming Spotify all day from it. Like,
I actually streamed Spotify all day from it. It was like
well, not in like 2009 though, like not
no, like
early, early.
2012, I'd say.
Yeah, like it took a couple years, I was gonna say. Like it wasn't the initial.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like right off the bat, it
Yeah.
was just like
Yeah.
for the time it was fine. Kind of like how like when everybody back in 2006 was like, I got a Razor, and
Yeah.
then it was like the cool phone, and then it went away, and now it's back.
Now it's back. Yeah.
Yeah, great, love that for you, Nokia. It's Nokia, right? That Nokia Razor.
No, it was a Motorola originally.
Oh, ooh, sorry,
Yeah, Razer
Motorola.
was
I have a
Motorola.
Motorola
I have
too.
my obsession with Motorola is well documented.
I don't know why. I think like Nokia, for some reason, Nokia Razor sounded right to
I
me for some
had I
reason.
had Nokias. I had Nokias for years. I had the stick Nokia,
Yeah,
then I had like a flip one.
I had Nokia.
I was unfortunately I changed phones. Even though the Nokias are pretty much indestructible, unfortunately,
I think I had two.
I ran across a couple of incidents where one, I had a golden retriever at the time, and the phone was in a leather case and combined with dog.
Oh.
Dog did not eat the phone, but there were distinct tooth marks in the metal.
Oh boy.
Um, that was fun. That's actually a story. There was a time where this was also when I got into a car accident, but the car accident was happening because I was retrieving the phone.
Oh.
So I dropped the phone. I dropped the phone in an airport coming back in Philly.
Mm.
So I lost my phone, and that was my cell phone. That was literally like, that was it. But I was like, oh, they said they have it. I'm gonna go up there because this is when I was driving. Like, let me go up there and get my phone back. It's only an hour away, whatever. I go there and they do the whole like, can you show ID? What does the phone look like, right? And I'm like, it has two bite marks. And they're like, okay, yeah, we know what phone it is.
It's like, oh, you mean
Um,
this like torn up thing?
the bite marks were literally in the body of the phone. The phone still worked.
Oh.
Um, my my dog was young at the time. It was actually more my mom's dog.
Hmm.
And she had smelled a leather case and decided to chew on it. Unfortunately, the case was on the phone at the time, and she chewed enough to like, again, the bite marks were in the metal. They weren't just on the case. Like the case was torn, there were dents in the metal.
Hmm.
Um that was not the time where we had a dog and during teething she ended up electrocuting herself and throwing the fire alarm.
Um, pardon? Your dog electrocuted itself and like started a fire?
Not started a fire. We had one of those security system alarms
Uh-huh.
that was wired. So like it went underneath the barister. Like it was this was the 90s.
Hmm.
We had one of those like home security like wired systems that was wired up in the house.
Hmm.
Problem. This dog, not the golden retriever. This was before the golden retriever. We had an Australian shepherd. Smart dog. Unfortunately, smart dog bred for activity, gets bored very easily, is smart, plus this specific dog was allergic to like four different things.
Hmm.
So she was put on prednisone, which meant that she was always hungry all the time. Combine always hungry with smart and medium-sized dog.
Hmm.
So when she started teething, she would look for anything to like chew on. She chewed through the insulation of these wires
Oh
one
boy.
day. Managed to electrocute herself without going to the vet.
Hmm.
Managed to trigger the cable such that the alarm went off on the house.
Hmm.
We come back from doing errands, seeing police cars by our house,
Uh-oh.
God.
and then having to explain to the cops what had probably happened. Because of course the alarm calls the cops, and no, they didn't get a response because no one was home.
Hmm.
So they were thinking there was an emergency or there was a break-in or something, and we had to be like looking, and we found the wires, and we were like, well, this is probably what happened. Our dog got into it.
Hmm.
And they were like, what? What the fuck? um Pardon my French, but like it was a whole ass thing.
Yes. Please, no swearing in my Christian live stream.
You're clean.
Oh, bollocks.
But it was, and I use the swears very specifically because like this dog electrocuted herself and did not die.
Hmm.
The dog was a puppy that grew up to be a nice old dog. Still hungry, still very food motivated, and very. This was also the dog that would literally eat a bowl of Halloween candy.
That's not great for dogs.
No, like we had the vet on speed dial.
Oh
Like that was
God.
how she started. She started with electrocuting herself and setting off the alarm.
She just woke up every day and chose chaos.
She woke up and chose chaos. Like I'm pretty
So,
sure that's what that dog was.
so I have here. You guys can't see it, but I can see it. I have the map for the new setting that you guys are going to be in. I just wanted to give you guys a little preview of like some of the names that you're going to be hearing when you walk in, when you walk in, just to like get you a little bit like familiar. So, of course, you have reached the fabled Meliora, and which no one's ever asked me what that means.
Are we putting things in hammers, or
I
are
think
we
it's something
doing the
about a
actual
square
Latin?
hammer.
Are we
Oh,
actually using the actual Latin meaning of the word?
oh
Are
yeah,
we
I'm
on the
actually using
level?
the actual Latin meaning of the word. And I actually had somebody, and I actually like had a line of dialogue for like if anybody asked me what that meant, but no one ever asked me. So like
I was
tough.
more giggling at the thank you for now making me listen to Ghost. Like,
Yeah. By the way, half this campaign setting would not have been possible without the music of the band Ghost, and just Tobias's visions, like
special thanks
specifically,
to
very special thanks to Tobias because he is just like God. There's so much Ghost in this campaign. He is the token for the Rat King. He's also the token for the. He's also the token for Minister Hardcastle, Meliora, of course. The There's a lot of Ghost on the official playlist, which actually let me put that link in the chat.
and thanks to Ghost being referenced here, there's Ghost songs referenced in my AL playlists too.
Ah, good, good. Yeah,
Holly and
listen to Ghost,
Chorus have Ghost
people.
references, yeah.
Yeah, there is so much. This play. So the playlist is like a little bit weirdly lopsided because when I made it, I was still under the impression that this was going to be like like I said, Blade Runner 5e. Where's the let's see copy playlist link? I will put that into the chat for peeps. Oh God, I said peeps. And so yeah, the playlist is a little bit lopsided because, like I said, I was under the impression that it was going to be like Blade Runner 5e. So some of them have a little bit more of a like
The tone shift.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a marked shift. I think right after like so the first few songs on here: Night Call, Kavinsky, Run Through the Jungle, by A Popular History of Science, which is a cover of the Creedence Clearwater Revival song. Depeche Mode, Stripped, Laura Branigan, Self Control, Virus by Priest, and Driving a Distance by Magna Carta Cartel. Just all that stuff. And I used that like as mood music when I was writing this thing. And then after when I was done, like getting the mood, I kind of had like more or less like where it was where we were at tone wise. Then the songs like there's like a marked shift because then you get some Cage the Elephant, you get Calibro 35, which is what I used, which is like pretty much like it's like Ocean's 11 music. I used it when I was writing the trivia and casino episodes. There's just like a lot, even the namesake of this campaign, Giorgio Moroder. His song "Chase" from the Midnight Express soundtrack is on there, and then you get I'm just gonna scroll down and like list off some stuff. You get Gwendolyn and the Good Time Gang, which are a real band,
And
and I hope that they're not litigious. Not that they'll ever see this, because that I like made their lead singer like some sort of well. So we got Gwendolyn, we got Beastie Boys, Pink Floyd, Linda Scott, Ghost, of course, Lindsey Buckingham, Muse, and the last song we have on the soundtrack, just to give a little bit more of like the tone shift. It goes from the West by Alan Silvestri off the Back to the Future 3 soundtrack, and also Wheel in the Sky by Journey.
no, that has I can see the tone there because I was just rewatching Back to the Future 3 a few weeks ago.
It's my second favorite Back to the Future movie.
It was on Amazon Prime, and I have this habit of just
Is it?
It was. I'm not sure if it still is.
Let's
I know in March it was.
Back to the Future 3. It's on Prime. Leaves Prime in 11 days, people.
Now you know what you're doing in the next 11 days.
Yeah.
But it was very much it was one of those things where in March I have this habit of turning on mildly interesting things or things I've already seen as background noise. And I was rewatching the A Team. I was rewatching because they had the movie on from like the last decade. They have a lot of BBC documentaries that I've been watching. But yeah, I was on a Back to the Future and like Christopher Lloyd kick in the 80s kick.
I am always like eternally on a Back to the Future kick. Originally, originally you guys weren't going to be leaving in a van. You guys were going to be leaving in a DeLorean. No joke.
Nice.
It was going to be a DeLorean. I told this to Lex like a million years ago, and then I was just like, but wait, no, a DeLorean only sits like two people, or four, or I think two people, maybe four people max. So that's why I got you guys to leave in the gross Ulrich van, the Astro van or whatever that was. Oh no,
But
wait.
I like
No, sir, continue. Yeah.
but then we got to make A Team and Scooby Doo jokes. So
That
I'm
is
not
true.
sure.
That is true. But yeah, so back to the Meliora map. So here are a couple of the names of the districts and things that you're going to be encountering. So there's Watchman's Hollow, Caster's Cross, Old Town, the Iron Triangle, Hightower, Bardstown, and the Market District, and of course the main square.
Those names sound familiar.
Those names sound familiar.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder where I got Bardstown from.
I was actually more thinking of Hightower and Old Town, but
I might have inadvertently wanted to make a joke with something
that's fair.
because I thought of these names like a long time ago. And this is a Western themed campaign now.
I mean, and to be fair, it's one of those names like noun plus noun. You can't really go wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or just taking like a map of Europe, of like European towns, and using them. I think this is what actually that author did in Harry Potter was literally like take a map of England and
That
like
author,
that author.
Joanne, Queen of Turf Island, Joanne
Yes.
Rowling.
But that's what she did for some of the characters was literally like take a map of England and look at the small town names.
I mean, we're already going to get demonetized for saying the F word. I'm sure like turf is also like a flagged word. But I mean,
Turf. But also it's fact.
it is a fact. She is, yeah, you know. Anyway, not to get political on a D&D, like, you know, stream.
Down with Thayans.
Driss did
That's how
nothing
political
wrong.
you get
No,
with
kidding.
this. Down with Thayans. The Red Wizards are evil.
So, yeah, Bardstown actually, like, was named something else previously. I don't remember what, but, like, since I'm staying adjacent to Louisville, I decided Bardstown, like, you know, hey, it makes sense because that was the section where that would take place. Old Town, I just kind of wanted, like, you know, generic district name.
It's one of those really good generic names, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted so bad to do Bartertown, but I'm like, no, that's too on the nose. You guys just did like a Mad Max thing.
Oh man.
Who run Bartertown? That's why I changed it to the Iron Triangle, which is actually a triangle on the map, and I also did that because
Mad Max Fury Road that the three towns.
I also wanted the Iron Triangle in there because because of that, you know, remember that part of Queens outside Shea Stadium where you go to get your car parked.
That's the Iron Triangle.
Yeah.
And guess who's mostly going to be situated there? Hightower, you'll find out what that is soon. There's also Caster's Cross, which I'm not going to give away too much about. Watchman's Hollow is just it's the first district on the map. And Market District, that is self-explanatory. That's where the markets are.
Sorry, again, I've been watching documentaries and it's like, and this is where the market was. And I'm like, let me guess, it's Market Street now. Like,
Yeah.
there's certain trends here.
So yeah, I mean, like maybe like not the most original names I could have come up with, but like they're mine, and I love them, and I hope that you guys get to see them like next week when hopefully everyone else is feeling better. Again, Godspeed to you, Bear and Shara. Hope you guys feel better. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna wind it down here because I got some Sopranos episodes to watch and
We're
probably another
off the
sandwich
end.
to eat.
I never actually seen The Sopranos.
Um, it's really good, but
Which,
also really hard sometimes.
well, and here's the thing, like when it started airing was right when I was really into The Godfather and Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, choice movie. Like I love that movie. Like anytime it's on like TNT, I just like drop
So
everything I'm
like
doing and watch it.
I'm not really sure how I didn't get into it, but I think it was right or also around the time where it was easier for me to borrow films than it was for me to watch cable and I didn't have HBO.
It's a really interesting look into mental illness in some parts, but
I've
it
heard
was
that.
also written at a time where like a lot
Yeah.
of that stuff also wasn't that well understood, especially in how it relates to like masculinity, family, uh, things like that.
There was actually I was gonna say there was a of all things like a fandom or like media study. I remember reading about it where it was all about masculinity in The Sopranos.
There's
Remember
some
it was
interesting
amazing. Yeah, like I
cases
remember
about
it
like
was it was literally amazing to read. Like even though I hadn't seen The Sopranos, it was just because I kind of knew what it was riffing off of in the sense because it's very much sort of like to my understanding, and I could be wrong. At least in the first couple seasons, it was definitely riffing off of the, Gangs of New York,
yeah,
um,
I have definitely there's so
Goodfellas.
I
Yeah.
watched it when it was airing,
Okay.
and I watched it with my dad, which at times
Mhm.
was like awkward, because like HBO show, it's just like it is
Yeah.
what it is, uh,
HBO is what it is. Yeah.
and so we'd be watching it as it was airing, and I remember most of it like from season 3 onward. So like what? So we've basically been binging it our entire time here, and it's really I didn't realize how much I had certain aspects of the show just sort of fall by the wayside toward the end, like
Mm.
his psychiatrist Melfi, who is like pretty much like she's like the Watson of the show. I'd like
Okay.
to say she's
Okay.
like his emotional foil. He is he is who he is. He's like macho, toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
but also has these demons that like in his family that he's never come to terms with, and she's the one who's guiding him through it. He is Dante, she is Virgil, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I did realize like how much, and at some point that sort of falls by the wayside. The sessions become less of the focus, and it becomes more on like what's going on with the family and like what's going on with like different aspects of, like what's going on with like the criminal aspect of the show. And I didn't realize how much I missed those sessions with Dr. Melfi, which come less and less as the show progresses. I really, really liked it at the beginning. At the beginning, because it was like a really novel concept. Like here is this, a man's man, Gary. He's always like whatever happened to Gary Cooper, the strong silent type, and here he is going to a female psychiatrist talking about his feelings, which is something that is not done in his culture, and also like in the mob.
And it was a more serious take. Because I remember in the 90s, there were a couple of films that played that up a little bit. There was one with Bruce Willis I know of.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it was the whole nine yards. And then there was one that it didn't involve the mall, but it involved an assassin. It was of all things, it was Gross Point Blank.
I love that movie. That's a good
And
movie.
I love
Yeah.
that movie. Yeah, but like the idea
Minnie
of like
Driver.
this man's man, or like this mobster going to a psychiatrist, was a thing that people were interested in.
Analyze this also.
Analyze This, I also remember seeing, yeah. The De Niro, that was De Niro,
Yeah,
right?
that was more of like a yeah, that was De Niro and Billy Crystal. That was more of a comedy slant on it, and
Gross Point Blank was a romantic comedy in the end.
yes, yeah, romantic comedy. He goes to his high school reunion
Yeah.
and all that. Anyway, so
It was Mr. and Mrs. Smith with like it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith before Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Like
we've
it
gone
was a romantic comedy with John Cusack.
we've gone way off. But anyway,
Um,
also just on the same event, The Sopranos, I had to do this because I couldn't not do this. There is a character somewhere in this settlement named Furio. So if you find him,
hmm.
hopefully that'll be fun. So
Does
yeah,
that mean we get? Does that mean we get to lock one of the other characters in the garage?
Oh,
there is a garage.
yeah. I was gonna mention this back to The Sopranos, where like it's because I didn't see it when it was airing, and I'd have to check when it was airing because now like it's been I can't remember when it stopped airing.
2007.
2007. Okay, because like I remember I'd have to compare it against other shows that were coming out because I remember The Wire was also coming out around that time.
I don't remember when The Wire was coming out, honestly.
I think it was later on that decade, but I think it started while The Sopranos was still airing.
Yeah, Sopranos was basically like, the show that kicked off prestige
Breaking Bad.
television.
Yeah.
There would be no Breaking Bad, there would be no The Wire,
Right.
there would be like, all the, there would be no Mad Men even because like Tony Soprano was the premier like anti-hero or like, villain that you're rooting for.
Villain
Yeah,
protagonist.
villain protagonist, yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, it would be interesting to know when those came out in relation to The Sopranos, because even though
Sopranos came out in
Sopranos came out
99,
first, I think,
98, 99. I don't remember. I remember we
but
just got an HBO.
like as the seasons were shifting, I'm kind of wondering if they were playing off of each other, of like, oh, now that these other films are out, now that we have to concentrate on like the family side of things, like,
I'm not sure. Yeah, that would be
but
interesting to
I'm
think
not sure.
about. I don't.
Like, it's
I
kind of
don't. I don't
interesting to think
remember
about, but
honestly. Like at the time, what was going on with TV wise? Because like TV was more like was not like Oh, Wire was 2002. Thanks, Sorka.
that was, yeah, that was like about halfway through, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember like TV was just like not as momentous as it is now.
No.
Like we're like in another TV golden age, and
Yes and
and
no.
like there's too much TV.
Yes and no, because I remember that time you like you could tape stuff to watch later. Like you had, you know,
I didn't have that. My parents don't didn't have
my
have a
parents didn't
DVR.
either. I mean, we had a VCR, but like there were people that had like
Oh
or
yeah.
they could save it, or like like Breaking Bad was a thing on regular cable, where I still remember people being like, "No, I can't do this today because Breaking Bad is on. Like I can't
I remember
that those are my plans."
I remember getting yelled at because I forgot to tape Chicago Hope in like 1997. It was like the musical episode.
I'm sorry,
I
but
always
like
wanted to do that to you guys and start off like, hey, welcome to another session of Moroder. This is a very special episode. This is the musical episode, and you guys just being like, oh, what? Excuse me?
this is a very special after school special episode.
They're all kind of apt. The one where Siri and Cheswick like they like connect. That was like the most after school specially one that
It was
we've
cute
had.
though.
I believe that was like the closest I've come to like cry. Actually, no, wait, I did actually cry on stream one time, and it was a Siri moment. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna wrap this on up. Hopefully, everybody will be mended and healthy for the next one. So guys, you have anything else you want to say before we sign off for the week?
Not really.
Okay, Kit, what about you?
Not really. Take care of yourselves. If you have cats or dogs or danger noodles, please pet them.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, yep, that has been our 420 special episode of Moroder. I have been AJ. Take care of yourselves and each other. get a vaccine if you can. I got mine halfway there to like, full 5G coverage. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
My 5G coverage kicks in 2 days.
Mine, I still had to get my second one in on Monday. So we'll see how it is then.